Hello and welcome to a quick review of Battlefront's Team Yankee World War III Rulebook. This came out some time ago, I believe in late 2015 or late 2016. The book has been pretty popular, but I also want to point out that it was based on a novel by Harold Coyle called Team Yankee, which is a military fiction of a World War III that did not happen. I would recommend reading the book. If you enjoy military things, great book to read. This is a used copy that I picked up because I read it a long time ago, and I remembered I did read a number of Harold Coyle's other books as well, and I enjoyed them. So anyways, let's take a look at here we have for Team Yankee. So at the beginning here, we have a map of Europe. The blue is NATO. Red is basically the USSR, along with the Warsaw Pact nations. The white, there you see, those are the nations that are in neutral. So you can also see that there are some news clips that it comes out of the Team Yankee book, the novel, and it just basically explains how things are set up. Why did this happen? Why did the Cold War that happened seemingly ever since the end of World War II suddenly become hot in there? So it goes into explanation for that, and then it talks a little bit how the forces are arrayed in Western Europe. With that, with the heroes of the Team Yankee unit, well, they're kind of down here around the Nuremberg area with US 7th Corps. Now, it also talks about what happened. Why did the war start up? The timeline is basically the same as ours, except in 1985, I believe, instead of appointing Gorbachev as the leader, the Russian political committee appointed another leader who was another hardliner. He was not interested in glasnost, if you will, and then things went south from there. And that's where our timeline diverges, and that's why in the timeline where Gorbachev is not a premier, this is what we have. So in looking at Team Yankee, this is just describing a little bit what is Team Yankee. It's a tank-heavy combat team in there, and it shows you a little bit of the organization. It also talks about some of the different scenarios that took place in the novel itself. So that is kind of cool. They do set you up, and then they explain a little bit. So if you don't want to read Team Yankee the book, but you want to get a gist of it, this book will show it to you, no problem whatsoever. It also talks about playing Team Yankee. In many ways, this is done like the rest of the Flames of War books, where it's giving you a setup, and it's giving you some ideas. What is it that you need? So this is assuming that you have never played a Flames of War game before, which is understandable. Is it similar to Flames of War? Yes and no. A lot of it, yes. There's a lot of basics where you move, shoot, and assault. Those are your three basic parts of the turn, but there's a little bit of differences here and there for it. Now, of course, with Team Yankee, you also have rotary winged craft, in other words, helicopters, in addition to fixed wing aircraft as well. Now, recently, Team Yankee has come out. The Battlefront has come out for their Team Yankee series. They also came out with Red Thunder, which is an expansion to the Russian list. I'm just looking at the basic rulebook here. So it talks about the unit cards. What do the numbers mean? What does that make sense? Again, very colorful. The idea is Battlefront's encouraging people to buy their models, and in the boxes of the models, they got these unit cards to go with them. So they don't have to refer to a table. So on one side, you get your basic information. Let's say here, this BMP-1 transport. And it talks about all the different things, the armor values, the movement, the kinds of weapons that it has. All the information's on a card. And typically on the back, they would give you the point value and how many would belong in the unit and any special rules that will go with it. So as you see, it's laid out. It talks about the terrain over there in Western Europe. As you can see, it talks about movement. So the version 4 Flames of War is based a lot of what they did here in terms of what they do with terrain and whatnot. And it also talks about shooting as well. Well, we would expect that. But as you can see, again, the pictures, nicely done, nice graphics. The quality of the pages, it's very obvious that they put time into this. And again, it also talks about artillery, because you cannot have a game without artillery at this point. Although, interestingly, compared to the World War II, these barrels are a lot longer. Definitely. So then it also gets into assaults as well with modern infantry. Now, of course, Team Yankee has come out with some expansions for the British forces and the East German forces, and that has been met with success, the West German forces as well. So this is allowing a player not just to deal with, you know, American and Russian, but definitely if you're just American and Russian and that's it, this book, it'll get you started. Red Thunder will expand on the Russian list. There will be an American expansion at some point in the future. I don't know the release date at this point. So anyways, it talks a little bit about force structure, where you talk about the Russian T-72 tank battalion, and it talks about here's the HQ, here are your compulsory units that you've got to have. Okay, and then those that are in the gray, those are your optional ones. It depends on how many points you want to put into this, which of course this is also depending on how big your table is, how many points you want on the table, how much density you want for the units. So there are those things to look at. And of course we have Union forces there. We talk about the organization for Team Yankee, and again it talks about the different weapons that you have in there. So again, you got pictures to go with the cards, then you have the Soviet forces, again just going through here showing what's happening. So you can see this is like on the back of the card here where they talk about the point value system. Interestingly enough, that when you look here for 3 T-72s, they're 12 points. Here when you have 10 T-72s, it's 47 points. You'd think that 3 into 12, 4 points per tank. Here it's 10. Going into 47 is 4.7 points per tank. So that's kind of an interesting thing, because I remember from at least Flames of War 3rd edition, where if you're taking the Russian Horde, you end up paying less points the more tanks that you buy in your tank horde. But again, we also deal with the tank horde here if you're a Russian player. No true Russian player would flinch at taking casualties, because that's the Russian army. They do take casualties, whether you play regular Flames of War or you play Team Yankee. So anyways, it also talks a little bit about the Hind, okay, as an assault helicopter and as an assault landing company. So, I mean, they do give the Russian player some options. The Su-25 Frogfoot as well. And then it goes into missions, okay. It goes into the special rules dealing with the missions, and then it talks about the free-for-all, the encounter, the dust-up, which, again, pretty much for veterans of Flames of War system, it looks quite familiar, except there's a little bit of a difference here on the map deployment thing. And then, of course, they got some scenarios here. What they did here for the scenarios, again, they based it off of the fights in the book. So, like, for example, here, this is a nice one. It's very small, 4x4 map. You've got 3 T-72s going up against 1 Abrams tank, and that's it. The last battle of Tank 66, and then it gives you the special rules for that. And then, of course, here you got the battle for Hill 214. So now you got more involved units, but you also have alternative forces, so they give you the point values, and they sort of built up a little bit for that. Then it goes into the painting guides, which My understanding is, and if I'm wrong, please somebody let me know. For the American forces, you can either go this way, the overall forest green, or you can do the Summer Verdant MERDC camo. Whereas for the Cobra, compared to the A10 Warthog, you know, they have their colors. You can't really mess around with the colors too much. It also gets into how to paint the infantry as well. And then you have the painting guide for the Russians as well for this. I know that, so these colors here they're part of the same system as the present colors that the Flames of War sells with their sets. But again, your choice. We got the index here, and then on the back we have our reference sheet. 2 pages, pretty straightforward. And then we get some more awesome artwork here. And, well, overall, I have played one game of Team Yankee. It does feel a little bit different from a regular Flames of War, and as you know, I've done Flames of War a number of times. I'm looking, getting into this. I'm not sure I'll be getting into it, you know, so many points. I think my feeling is for a 4x6 table, you should be looking at no more than 65 points on the table. But that's just my opinion, because when it starts to be super cluttered, it takes away from the appeal. But that, again, that's just my opinion. If you enjoy moderns, you want to work with moderns, Team Yankee certainly is a way to go, and I would definitely recommend it. All right. I hope this review has been a benefit. Have a great day, and God bless you.